moving on to the national curriculum. Oops, there's a bit too many. So the national curriculum is what is delivered in the schools. So this goes from Key Stage 1 all the way up to Key Stage 4, which is Key Stage 4 is GCSE level, as I mentioned. So this is a set of subjects and standards used by both primary and secondary schools, so that essentially children learn the same things, so that the outcomes are the same. And it covers what subjects should be taught. So as I mentioned, obviously you have the core subjects, then you have the one subject from each of the tracks, and then they would have their elective subjects as well. So the core subjects, as I mentioned, English, maths and science, and then at least one from arts, design and technology, humanities and modern foreign languages. That's to help give the students a broad range of subjects before they would then go on to A-levels where they would specialise, because they would study just 3 or 4 subjects there. So other types of schools include academies and private schools. So they aren't bound by national standards, but they must teach a balanced curriculum. So again, they would have to teach the core subjects, so English, maths and science, but they would have more flexibility on other subjects studied. But they must also teach religious education. So like that's taught in the public schools, they would be taught in the private schools and the academies as well. In recent years, there's been sort of a wave of public schools, of government-funded schools becoming academies, so that they have more flexibility over what they can teach the students. So the academies are made up of a board, so that might include teachers, local government representatives, not government representatives, so teachers, parents, and those kind of people who would make decisions on what kind of subjects are taught, whereas the public schools would cover the national curriculum, and that would sort of be under the government. So looking at the grading system, so I just want to point out some changes that were made most recently. So the first essential graduates of the GCSE, the new grading system were last summer, so summer 2017. So the GCSE grading system previously was A star to G, U being a fail. So that's probably the grading system that you guys are most familiar with. But a new grading system has been introduced, and that is the 9-to-1 grading system, 9 being the highest, as you can see on the table here. But there being 9 grades now, that means there are more options, more grades available than previously. So you can see in the top tier there, previously there was A star and A, but now you have 9, 8 and 7, and then B and C, 6, 5 and 4. So 4 is the pass mark, so same as a C, but 4 is an okay pass, whereas 5 is a good pass. So the idea of changing the grading system is because they want to distinguish the very highly performing students from the highly performing students. So the idea is that no one will get straight 9s, but I'm not so certain. I'm sure someone can prove them wrong and get straight 9s, because you quite often see students that have straight A stars. So what you will see over these next few years, if you're looking at graduates with the GCSE certificates, they may have a mixture of alphabetical grades and numerical grades. Now this is because the new numerical system was only implemented in England for English literature, English language and mathematics. So the rest of the students studying the other subjects, as well as outside of England, will have just had alphabetical, and other students in England who are studying English and maths, so both English language and English literature and maths, they will have numerical grades for those subjects, but alphabetical grades for all other subjects. So They are phasing in more and more subjects. So by about 2020, students should be receiving all numerical grading, but you will see some crossover. So there's a really useful table on the right-hand side here, on the left-hand side, sorry, just listing out very important things you should know about the new grading system. Has anyone seen any of the new grading yet?
I've been looking for them, not yet.
You've been looking for them, yeah. So there will be some, but they'll sort of trickle through, and in the next sort of couple of years, you'll probably see them more often. Okay, so in terms of the curricula, these are developed by the Department for Education, so they're available online. So on the left-hand side, you've got an example of the curricula. So very quick question, can anybody guess, looking at that on the left-hand side, what subject that would represent based on the content? Can everyone read the content? Okay, so I'll read it out. So subject content is number, algebra, ratio, proportion, and rates of change, geometry and measures, probability, and statistics. Exactly, yeah. So that would be for mathematics. The link at the bottom as well takes you to GCSE subject content, so it has the content for all of those different subjects there, which can be downloaded. So some examples here. So here are two certificates. As you can see, they're both from different boards of education. So you've got AQA on the left and EdExcel on the right, which is now known as Pearson EdExcel. So this is I think 2011 certificate, so a little while ago. So on the AQA certificate, so at the top it will say General Certificate of Secondary Education, which stands for GCSE. And then you've got full courses and short courses. So as you can see there, the full courses are worth a whole GCSE, and the short course is worth a half a GCSE. So that would be, as I said, religious studies or information technology if that was only studied as a short course. Some may take it as a full course if they decide that's the track they want to follow. You can also see the Ofqual logo at the bottom, so that just indicates that this is a qualification. These are qualifications regulated by Ofqual. They will be listed on the Ofqual website. The same on the right-hand side as well. And you've got here you've got alphabetical grading, so we don't have any examples of certificates that use the numerical grading. So they're all graded, in this case, B's and C's. And then on the right-hand side, you can see on the right-hand certificate, you've got the QAN, which is the Qualification Accreditation Number. So that number should tally up with what is on the Ofqual website. So the screen grab we had of the GCA level in physics, that should be listed there. So just check that that tallies up. But as I said, some qualifications are superseded. So the numbers may change, so it might not necessarily match up. But you should be able to find the superseded qualifications listed on Ofqual, but it will just state it's no longer offered. So quick quiz. The examination authorities in these instances?
AQA and Pearson EdExcel.
Exactly. And can you see, I don't know whether you can from the back, but the highest grade that was obtained? A B? Yeah, okay. So it's got it listed on the certificate. So these are the certificates, but as well you have transcripts. They look very like transcripts rather than certificates, but they are certificates. Okay. So here is a GCSE example from a different board. So this particular document isn't a final certificate, so it says at the top, Statement of Provisional Results. And we were actually discussing yesterday about provisional results and what that means. So in the UK, yes, the results are provisional, but the only instances where the results will change is if a student appeals against that. So if they need a certain grade to get into what we call sixth form, or into college to study BTECs or NVQs, then they can appeal if they haven't quite got it, and if they've missed it by maybe a mark or two. So that would go to the board. The board would determine whether they felt that student had been fairly or unfairly marked. If they If they felt that the student had been unfairly marked, then they have the power to change the grade, and then they would be awarded a new statement of results together with a certificate as well. But it doesn't often happen. So although it's a statement of provisional results, more often than not, these results are going to be the final results. But to be certain, you can request the certificate. So this particular one isn't the certificate, but on the certificate they would have the grades listed as well. So this particular one is issued by WJEC, which I think stands for the Welsh Joint Examination Council. And contrary to popular belief, this is actually offered in the UK. So this in England, as well as Wales. So this particular one was obtained in England at an English school. It's just that the teacher decided that this was the best board for their particular school and the curriculum and the content that they wanted to cover. You'll see it's both in English and Welsh. That's because Welsh is still studied in Wales as a GCSE. And we've discussed the difference between provisional and final results. And again, short course, so you've got religious studies here, so it's highlighted that it's a short course, which is worth half a GCSE. Okay, so if we move on again, we've got some more examples here. So as I highlighted before, you've got the qualification accreditation number. So this is included on Ofqual, on the information, and also on the certificate as well. So you've also got the name of the school that the student attended, so to make sure, so you have various documents in front of you, one from Edexcel, one from AQA, one from OCR. They would all list the same school on them. Make sure that is listed, because if there's a difference between the school, then that's a little bit of a cause for concern, because the student would study all of their GCSEs at the same school, even though they're awarded by different bodies. Okay, so then the double award. So on the right-hand side, you can see a screen grab of the transcript from AQA. So a double award is worth 2 GCSEs. So it is actually listed as 2 on here, but it's only got one syllabus number. So 1206, science double award. So the likelihood is that one examination would be taken in year 10, at the end of year 10, and one examination would be taken at the end of year 11. So that's worth 2, unlike a short course, which is only worth half, or unlike a normal GCSE, which is only worth 1. And they're graded on the same scale. A good question I had in the break actually was about the different boards, and similarly to the Nigerian question, is whether one board is easier than the other. As they're all overseen by the same body, the same authority, that isn't the case. So all of the examinations and the content, the assessment will be at the same level. And all of the grading, so the grading boundaries for GCSEs change year on year. So if once all of the examinations have been marked and numerical grades have been given out of 100, the grading boundaries are then decided. So you might have 95 to 100 being an A star, and then 90 to 94 being an A. But this can differ. So if the board consider that the examinations were particularly hard that year, the grading boundaries will be lowered. If the board decide that the exams were particularly easy that year, the grade boundaries will be higher. So there will be information on the grade boundaries per year rather than overall. So, but then the numerical grade will then determine the alphabetical grade. So it's always going to be A, B, C, D, and so on. But the numerical grade will change. So if you see the breakdown of the percentage and it doesn't tally up between years, that would be why. Okay, so progression. So GCSE marks the end of compulsory secondary education. However, students must stay in education, some form of education, until they are 18. So this might be A-levels, which is a very common pathway for GCSE students, but it also may be NVQs, which are vocationally oriented qualifications, or BTECs, which are sort of more applied courses, so they would study these at college in, let's say, makeup artistry or hospitality, business management. And then you also have apprenticeships and traineeships or supported internships. So these are entirely work-based. Students are paid a very small amount, but they learn on the job. And there's no sort of formal assessment, but they are quite often taken on by the company at the end of it, or they could show they've done an apprenticeship and but with which company, and then they would then go on to apply for jobs in that same field. So A-levels, as you know, are academic, so they would follow on from GCSEs, and naturally then a student would apply to university if they decided they wanted to go to university. But what we've seen in the UK is that more often universities are accepting BTECs, but also NVQs, depending on the courses they offer. If the courses are more applied or more vocational in nature, then some universities would accept them for entry. So, very quick question. Does your institution recognise GCSE for entry, direct entry into higher education? Yeah, okay, so generally across the board. And what would the justification be for that? I guess it's quite, across the board, we all of the same opinion that it's similar to the high school diploma, so they're sort of comparable in nature, and therefore the student would be suitable for entry into undergraduate level.
Yeah, that's a big difference that we touched upon part 1 too, in that the policies may be different depending on the country. In the UK, a holder of a GCSE would not be eligible to go to university. They would have to do some additional education before they get there. Most commonly the A-level, but also, as Charlotte mentioned, BTEC and sometimes even NVQ. But the sort of prevailing wisdom, if you will, in the US has been that if a student successfully completes the O-level, that is comparable in level and preparation to enter university study in the US. What are the sort of minimum requirements? Those differ among institutions. We would consider at least 5 GCSEs with C or higher to be equivalent, but I've seen cases where somebody would even consider one GCSE passed at a certain level as a qualifying credential for entry. But in the UK, they can't do anything with that university-wise. But in the US, perhaps they could, depending on the policies of your institution.
Okay, so we're going to quickly look at the AS level, which has slightly changed over the past couple of years. So previously, students would study the AS level, be examined, and then study for another year and be examined and gain the A level. The results from the AS level being added to the results from the A level and making up the whole A level. So it previously was known as AS and A2, which would make the A level, but now they've decoupled and they're considered 2 separate qualifications. So you may see fewer and fewer AS levels nowadays than previously. So the link at the bottom shows the timetable of which of when the subjects were decoupled and the reforms, and when those would be shown as the new AS level or the old AS level. Okay, so details about the AS level. It's a level 3 qualification, but it wouldn't be accepted for entry into UK university study. Although at certain institutions' discretion it may be, depending on the reasoning that the student has. Then it's the A level, which is also a level 3 qualification, but this is kind of a step towards the A level, if you like, even though it sits at level 3. So each subject is made up of 2 or 3 units or modules, as you may know them. And most subjects would be solely examined through a written examination at the end of the year, but you might find some that have internal assessments, so up to 30%. So these may be more practical, so you may make a portfolio in design and technology or art or those kind of subjects. So the coursework is kind of being phased out of A level, but for certain subjects that require a more practical portfolio or assessment, then they can also, that would make up at least 30%. Resits were available, they're not anymore, but these would normally be taken in January while the student is studying for the A2, the A level, the second part. But now obviously they're only examined at the end of the 2 years, so they would be attaining the A level. So post-reform, no resits are available, but they previously would be available. So as I said, the scores from the AS level no longer contribute to the overall A level, but would be an independent qualification. So normally students would study 3 or 4 subjects. Normally they would study 4 subjects at AS level, they would drop 1 subject and carry through 3 subjects at A level. But as this no longer works this way, they would study, if they wanted to study AS levels, they would study these alongside their A levels, so they would be 2 separate qualifications. So an example here of an AS level. So this is an edXL General Certificate of Education. So the way you can distinguish that this is an AS certificate is from where it says Advanced Subsidiary, which is what AS stands for, so GCE AS level. On the advanced level, A level, it would just say advanced. So again, this has the same components and elements of the certificates and transcripts that we've seen at GCSE level. So looking at the grading system, how well did the student do in these 2 subjects? So not great in general studies, and then sort of, passing grade in psychology. So general studies is a subject that most students, when they're studying A levels, would study alongside their chosen subjects. So this covers sort of like politics, general affairs, current affairs, that kind of thing that are going on that are important to understand in the concept, understand the concept in the context of what's going on in the UK. But these cannot be used, general studies cannot be used as a grade towards university entry. So if a university requires 3 A's, one of those A's cannot be general studies. So they would have to study 3 subjects plus general studies. And again, what was the examination body?
edXL Pearson.
Exactly correct. Okay. So the General Certificate of Education. So post-reform, this is a 2-year course now. So it's taken at the end of the 2 years of study in what we call 6th form or college. So it would depend on what's available to the student. Most schools in the UK have a 6th form attached to them or as part of them. Some don't, in which case some students are required to change school or go to college and study there. As you know, A levels are required for entry to UK university study, but at discretion they can use other qualifications as well, so BTECs, or depending on the personal circumstances, AS levels may be accepted. So the UK universities would set their own entry requirements. So if we're looking at Oxford and Cambridge, for example, you'd probably be required to have 3 A stars plus some extracurricular activities and undertake an interview and an admissions test. whereas other universities would quite possibly have just 3 Bs or 3 Cs. And this information is all listed on the UCAS website. So UCAS is the admissions service for the universities in the UK. So all UK students and international students as well that want to apply to university would do so via UCAS. So on the UCAS website, they have all of the degree courses that are offered by the institutions and the entry requirements that a student would need to get onto those courses. So they have not just A-levels listed on there, but BTECs and MVQs. And it works via a points-based system. So an A is worth so many points, a B is worth so many points, and they would add these up. It's not considered a post-secondary credential, although I know here you accept it for advanced placement on some degree courses. And it does not grant advanced standing at UK universities. The qualifications that probably would grant advanced standing are the higher national certificates or the higher national diplomas, which I'll go through in a little bit of detail in a moment. And as we have highlighted already today, there's a difference in the treatment of the A-level in the UK and the US, so it's slightly different there. So an example, here we have, this is the statement of results, so this isn't a final certificate. So this particular one is from OCR, so we haven't seen one from OCR yet. At the bottom you can see it says this is not a certificate, so just to be aware of that. So we would always advise to request a certificate, or if the individual can't present a certificate, which they should be able to do, they can go back to the board and request one retrospectively. So looking at this certificate, would you say that this student sat this exam first time round, or would you say that this is a resit?
I don't think we can read it. But
Yeah.
Okay. So statement of results, January 2010. So it's concepts for advanced mathematics, grade B, 74 out of 100. So the key here is that A levels are taken at the end of the academic year, so June, and this particular one was completed in January 2010. So what you can see here is that this is a resit, because resits are taken in January. So it gives the student enough time to revise for the content within the subject. So just to be aware of that, you can see that this is a resit, but you'll be able to see once you have all of the students' documents together, the same course, so it's the course number 4752, that would be listed somewhere else on a different transcript for June 2009. And how did they do in the examination? I know you can't see very well, but yeah, so they did average. They got a B, 74 out of 100. So as I said, you've got the numerical mark. So 74 out of 100 for this particular year may have been a B, but for a different year it may have been a C. So it just, the grade boundaries do fluctuate. So important to be aware of. Okay, so moving on to BTEC qualifications. So as I said, these are slightly different to A-levels in that they're more sort of applied. Sorry, question?
So are you going to touch at all on the online verification for GCSEs?
So online verification, is there a resource that you use currently?
We use Cambridge,
The
Cambridge International CIE, right?
Okay, so that would be for the Cambridge International qualifications. Yeah, so they're international GCSEs. Sure, we haven't touched upon it in this presentation, but so the Cambridge International examinations, they would be slightly different in that they wouldn't be delivered in the UK, they would be delivered outside of the UK, so that is a system that Cambridge have. I don't know whether, due to the new GDPR laws in the UK, whether you would be able to go directly to the board. You would probably need to gain consent, written consent from the individual that they were happy for you to contact the board on their behalf to verify the qualification, but I'm sure if you were to contact the board, they'd be more than happy to
We currently can go directly to Cambridge, to the website, and verify everything.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know if we were going to touch on CIE at all, so I wanted to do it while it was sort of.
Yeah, that is, it's a good point that you bring up, but as Charlotte was mentioning, these are UK-based qualifications, so that one is not.
Yeah, so they would be awarded
yeah.
outside of the UK,
Yeah,
but
we-
by a UK.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now, just to give you a sample, that probably will go away, and you would have to go through an intermediary, because the standard way to verify post-secondary in the UK is through the HEDD, Higher Education Database, and there you most certainly need to have written and express consent from the applicant prior to verifying. So I envision that it will occur in the same way. So, use it while it's available and enjoy. And you might be able to use it further on, but you have to jump through an additional hoop.
Yeah. Sometimes there is a fee as well. So I know with HEAD, they charge £12 for a verification of a higher education qualification. But yeah, as Alex said, those wouldn't be for secondary school qualifications. But emailing them directly would probably be your best bet. But making sure you had the written consent from the individual. Okay? Thanks.
Is it correct that the A-level examination can be recited as many times as somebody wants to?
As far as I'm aware, yes, although I'm not sure post-reform, so whether that they are limited to one resit, although resits aren't available anymore. So if we go back to the A-level, I don't think we had it on here actually.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, so the resits were available, but post-reform, no resits are available. So of the AS level, because it's a qualification in its own right. So essentially, when the student finishes their A level, they finish school, what they would need to do if they wanted to resit, if they did badly enough to not be able to have any options available to them, they would need to retake the whole year. So they would need to attend school for the whole year and take the A levels at the end of the year. So they wouldn't be able to just revise at home and retake the examination 6 months later, if that makes sense.
Because at my university, we required 3 A-levels with a grade A for mathematics, and then either physics or chemistry or biology and one language. And let's say somebody has got mathematics grade B, then he would tell us that he would reapply in the following session because he would receive the A-level examination of mathematics.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, they would have to go back to school. I mean, they could, if they did sufficient in their other courses, they could just study that subject throughout the year. So education is free up until the age of 19. So that would give them that year as a buffer if they didn't do well enough. But they would have to attend all of the classes again if they were taking the same subject and then complete the examination at the end of the year. Yeah?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Yeah?
So previously, the AS levels were kind of used as a building block for the A levels.
Exactly, yes.
So now, why would someone take the AS levels if it's an independent
It may
and
be
not a
for a
building
requirement,
block?
so if they were moving on to a BTEC, or they knew that they were required to have AS levels. So at the beginning I said that you will probably see fewer AS levels because there is no point in someone necessarily taking an AS level if they can get an A level after 2 years. But if they just want to study for that year and then move on to something else, like an MBQ or a BTEC, then they could do the AS levels.
And is that applicable to other countries that do the AS levels, like Cameroon, Sri Lanka?
No, I don't think so.
No.
That's just the UK. Okay, so BTECs. So BTECs are owned, developed and administered by Pearson Education. So all BTECs that you'll see will be awarded by Pearson. They'll all be listed on Ofqual, so the website I showed you earlier. If you are unsure whether what level it's at, you can have a look on the Ofqual register. and it will say whether it's level 2, level 3, 4, and above. So these are more specialist, so more applied, work-related qualifications that combine a mixture of practical learning with subject and theory content. So they would study these in schools and colleges, but also HEIs depending, so higher education institutions depending on the level of the BTEC. So those would probably be higher national, so certificates and diplomas. But also within work-based settings, so they might do a placement in a particular work-based setting if they are following a field of study that was relevant to that workplace. So there are over 2,000, there are a whole range of them, all in different subjects across 16 sectors. And they range from levels 1 to level 7, and that's on the RQF, the Regulator Qualifications Framework. So there's a big difference in the level of study that's being studied here. And then apprenticeships, which are different from BTECs, but just to highlight, they are available from levels 2 to level 5. So students could, normally if students do an apprenticeship, they would start those straight after their GCSEs. Because it is considered to still be in education, still be learning, because it's a leveled learning essentially. And then the off-call register, there's the link to the screen grab we gave earlier. Okay, so the different credentials that are awarded, so if we're looking at starting at level, from entry level to level 2, so entry level, level 1 and level 2, these would be known as BTEC firsts. So these are normally taken alongside other qualifications like GCSEs, because more often than not people wouldn't study up to level 2 and then go back and study a level 1 qualification. They may study them at their school or college where they're studying their GCSEs. This may be if they're studying at a technology institute or a school that is renowned for more applied qualifications or subjects. And they can be used to provide access to further study, for example, university, or they can be used to apply for an apprenticeship or into an employment. So in the UK, these would all be understood in the relevant fields. Then if we move on to BTEC Nationals, so these are offered at level 3, so the same level as A-levels, although slightly different in nature. But they might also lead to employment, so students can use these to get into university, but they might also use them to go straight into employment. Again, they may be taken alongside A-levels, so students that would study their A-levels in a college, where BTECs are offered as well, then they can take those alongside. And then higher nationals, so these are levels 4 and 5. So at higher national, you've got a certificate and a diploma. So these are equivalent to the first and second years of university. So this could allow for advanced standing onto a degree course. So a higher national certificate is considered 1 year of an undergraduate degree, so it may lead to a 1-year advanced standing, and a higher national diploma, a level 5, this is considered to be 2 years, the first 2 years of an undergraduate qualification, so it may be that it allows 2 years advanced standing. However, bachelor degrees in the UK mostly are 3 years, other than sort of engineering and medicine, which are slightly longer. The third year, being admitted directly into the third year, is quite tricky because at this point it's completely independent. You're not having very many hours of lecture per week, and you're having to write a dissertation. So these may be skills that you haven't learnt through a BTEC, so you may prefer, they may advise for you to be admitted into the second year rather than directly into the third year, which is essentially the final year of university study. But it would be up to the awarding, well, the university, the recruiting institution. And also Pearson has a large base, so they're not only based in the UK, but they're based worldwide. and these qualifications are offered everywhere. But in order for it to be a UK qualification that's regulated and recognised in the UK, it would need to be listed on Ofqual. If it's not listed on Ofqual, then it must be regulated and recognised in the country of origin. But they should be listed on Ofqual. So we look at an example here. So this is a transcript, so it's listed as a notification of performance here. It's got the BTEC logo, and I think at the bottom it would have all the top Pearson, but it's slightly too big to fit on the screen. So the grading system here is slightly different. So it's got a descriptive grading system, although there will be numerical values behind those. I'm not entirely sure of the numerical values, but they would probably have information on the Pearson website. So you've got distinction, which is the highest achieving grade. You've also got merit, which is the middle grade, and pass, which is the minimum requirement for passing, essentially. So you've got a range of subjects on the left and the grades on the right as well. This particular one is a higher national diploma in performing arts, so you will find this on Ofqual. It's a 2-year program, so considered to be the first 2 years of undergraduate study. And it's offered at a college rather than a higher education institution itself. This particular one is Amersham and Wickham College. So this particular one would be level 5 qualification. The final certificate is here, so it states on there level 5 and BTEC Higher National Diploma, or HND as we call them in the UK, in performing arts, and it's got the award date. So this is a particular one, but the certificates haven't really changed that much. They've stayed pretty much the same. So it's considered a post-secondary credential, so they would need, if they were studying the level 5 qualification, they would need normally a level 2 or level 3, depending on the entry level that this student went in on qualification to get on. And as I said, it may be used for transfer credit towards a university degree, but that would depend on the institution. So, question, how many years could this student be credited towards a university degree in the UK? 2, yeah.
2.
Obviously at the discretion of the institution. They're all autonomous and can make their own decisions. So if this particular student, if the particular university looked at the modules and thought, actually, these don't really overlap with the modules we offer, so it's probably more advisable that you start in the second year because you need to cover more of the content that we would cover. But again, it depends. Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
How are we doing on time?
It's 20 past 11.
Okay. So we have about 40 minutes left, and we have a lot of slides to cover, so maybe we'll speed up some of the pace, and please keep your questions till the end. We will address all of them. Next, we want to discuss some applications of the British educational system in other countries, and how that may be similar or different to what you heard in detail from Charlotte. The most common application is in the Caribbean, through the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate, CSEC. These are examinations which are administered by the Caribbean Examinations Council, CXC, which is a regional body that administers exams in the English-speaking countries in the Caribbean. And these are the 16 members. You can read them from Antigua and Barbuda to Trinidad and Tobago. The bigger islands, obviously, you would see a lot more of these come through, but they are available throughout the English-speaking Caribbean. The examinations are taken after Form 5, which similarly to the UK represents 11 years of primary secondary education in the 6+3+2 pattern. So at the end of 11 years, they would sit for the CSEC examinations. This is an example of a CSEC. On the top, you see Caribbean Examinations Council. That's the examinations body. You see the transcript, the name of the person, their unique ID number, and the subject studied on the left. If you can see from up there, there are some columns. The subject is listed on the leftmost column, and then the proficiency level in the middle column. The proficiency level determines the type of subject that is studied. Most subjects are studied at the general proficiency level, and these are designed to be preparatory for further tertiary study, so what we would term college preparatory. Technical proficiency subjects, they'll be listed as technical, they're meant for vocational study or further advanced technical study. There is a final type of proficiency, it's called basic. You won't see that very often. That is most common to remedial coursework that's being tested on. So most of the subjects will be of a general proficiency. The results can be verified on the CXC website, and I think we can show you an example of how that's done. The CSEC assessment, it bears some similarity to the UK-based assessment that we discussed before, but this one is 1 through 6, with 1 being the highest grade, grade 1, and the average grade being 3. The grades 4 and 5 are considered less than average and sort of less than passing, if you will. Still passing in a sense, but not really considered for further study. So to gain access to university study, to further study, I should say, in the Caribbean, students need to have a minimum of 5 passes with grades 1 through 3. This policy is widely adopted in the U.S. as a qualifier as well, although there may be differences among the schools in how many subjects they want. The 5-pass policy is adapted from the O-level, so similarly to the O-level, and because the CSEC is analogous to the O-level, you need 5 passes. Some institutions would say, in addition to 5 passes from with grades 1 through 3, so highest to average, we want the student to have completed English and mathematics within those 5, plus 3 others. Some do not have that restriction. So after the students complete the CSEC, what's next for them? The most common pathway is the CAPE, which is analogous to the A-level cycle in the UK. So the CAPE, in fact, was developed as a homegrown replacement of the A-levels in the late 90s. The educational systems of these countries in the Caribbean are based on the British system, and most of them offer British qualifications up until the late 90s. Until the CARICOM, which is the Caribbean, Caribbean Common Area. It's a sort of collection of the Caribbean countries and a separate organization. They decided to develop their own qualifications with their own examinations board, so that's how the CXC was formed. So they came up with curricula that would be comparable to what was there before, but with some notable local characteristics. So the CAPE is equivalent in level, but different in terms of the syllabi to the British O-level. It does require completion of Form 5, so that's the CSEC, in order to continue to the CAPE. It's offered in academic, technical, and vocational subjects. The subjects are offered as 1 unit or 2 unit courses, and as you can see here, that's analogous to the AS 8 level. There are 3 possible exit credentials, so students can study a CAPE, any one CAPE subject or however many individually, and for each one, they would get a certificate of completion. So any 1 unit will earn you a CAPE certificate. If you complete 6 units, you would get a CAPE diploma. And if you go and complete 8 units in a designated field of study, so it can't be just 8 units of any study, it has to be focused, you would get a CAPE associate degree. So we can show you an example of a CAPE exit qualification, well, maybe in the future. So as I said, there are many different subjects that can be studied on the CAPE. They are grouped in 4 clusters: arts and humanities, business and human development studies, mathematics and science, technical studies, and creative arts. The full list of courses in the syllabi are available at that link, which you can consult, similarly to the syllabi available through the Department for Education in the UK. This follows a 7-tier assessment system rather than the 6-tier I showed you. Remember, 1 through 6 was for the CSEC. This is 1 through 7. So kind of along the philosophy that it's harder to gain a 1. So it's much more difficult to have the highest level of achievement on the CAPE level versus the CXC level. So when you're evaluating these to determine GPA or sort of to gauge quality, keep that in mind. Even though the grading systems are similar, it is much more difficult at the CAPE level, so you should probably weight the 2 grade, for example, higher than you would the 2 grade on the CXC. Okay, so these are the 7 levels. Level 1 is the highest achievement, like in the previous example. 2 is above average, 3 is good, 4 is average, 5 slightly below average, 6 is definitely below average, and 7 is a fail. So looking at this document here, how many units did this student complete in total, would you say? Well, that's difficult. There's 4 units, yes, biology, and they're all 1 unit apiece. Remember, they could be 1 or 2 units apiece, so these are 1 apiece. So biology, chemistry, communication studies, and environmental science, all 1 unit, 4 units total. So based on the 4 exit credentials that I showed you, what credential would the student be eligible for based on this achievement? Exactly. So he would just be, or she, I don't know, this male or female, would be eligible just for a CAPE certificate. Had they completed 6, they would be eligible for the CAPE diploma, and 8, the associate degree. Okay. Another most common application for the British system is India. And we're going to discuss India, but this is just as applicable to Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepal. There are differences among those countries, so this is not exactly the same. However, the main concept is very similar. The educational system follows 5-3-2-2 pattern, 5 years of primary, 3 years of middle school, 2 years of secondary, and 2 years of higher secondary. There are 2 standardized exams in this system that follow this model. One is the secondary school certificate, and one is the higher secondary. The SSC is taken after grade 10, the HSC after grade 12. And as I said, these 3 countries follow the same model. We'll show you an example. This is an example of an SSC certificate taken after grade 10. This may be issued by a state board of education or a central board of education. That would be listed on the very top of the certificate. This one is very difficult to see, but it's the Central Board of Education in Delhi. The commonly accepted wisdom is that the exams taken at the central board level are much more difficult than the exams taken at the state board level. So you should take that into consideration when assessing these students.
Mm-hmm. As well as the All India Board as well.
Or the All India Board falls in the same category. Completion of this credential does not grant access to university in India. It only grants access to grade 11. And it is not comparable to the O level in terms of eligibility, and that's also true in the UK.
Yeah, so if it were from a state board of education, it would be comparable to GCSE grades D to G, so not quite at the highest level of GCSE. Whereas if it were from a more prestigious board, so the All India Board or the Central Board of Secondary Education, then we would consider that comparable to GCSE A star to C, so at GCSE level there.
In the next slide, we see an example of a higher secondary certificate. This one was also issued by the Central Board. The completion of the higher secondary certificate grants access to higher education in India. The students on the certificate will be given a raw grade out of 100, so the student has 77, 93, etc. And then a positional grade as well. And the positional grades range from A1 to E, maybe. The positional grade compares the student against the peers. So you can either assess the raw grade, sort of according to the conversion table, or you can assess them positionally as well.
Do you want
Yes, maybe we can, well, people can't see it, but if a student has attained a D1 positional grade, what would you think of this student? As an average, below average? Yeah, below, barely passing, but this student, you know, at the same time he did a positional grade D1 in chemistry, and yet he was a whiz in mathematics. So A1, which is, to get an A1 positional at the Central Board is very difficult. All right, so those were the applications of the British system of education onto other countries. This is by no means a compendium, and there are many other applications, but we're giving you just a common example. Next, we want to discuss maybe in the next 15, 20 minutes the French educational system and how that's applied across countries. The educational system in France follows the 5-4-3 pattern. 5 years of primary school, 4 years of lower secondary school, collège, and 3 years of upper secondary school, lycée. The school year in France runs from September until June. Secondary education years are counted backwards. So the first year of secondary, which would be year 6, is called sixième, 6th, and then it goes down from there. So 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. The last year, which would be the 7th year, is called terminal, or the last year. So keep that in mind. The examinations in the French system are scheduled in June, and retakes are available in September. France is divided administratively into 17 educational regions and 30 regional academies, 26 of which are on the mainland of France and 4 are overseas or outre-mer. Keep in mind that some of the regional academies, especially in the southern part of France, may also have jurisdiction in areas like Morocco that may have international schools that offer the French curriculum and the French bac. So if you see a transcript from a school in Rabat that is coming from the academy in, I don't know, Montpellier or something, that is not unheard of. Depending on which academy the school is attached to, you might see that. The academies are subdivided into departments which are headed by inspectors. And the academies are responsible for standardized examinations. The overall overarching structure is controlled by the Ministry of Education. But the academies are independent, and they are actually setting the standards, administering the exams, grading the exams. The ministry has no role in that. It's only the academies that are in charge. Okay, introduction into the exit credential, which is the baccalaureate. The completion of the upper secondary education leads to the award of the diplôme de baccalauréat, which can be obtained at a lycée, as we said, not at a collège. The collège is the lower secondary. There are 3 types of lycées. There's the general, technological, or professional. The most common one that you will see in your work is the general one. Within the general, there are 3 tracks, and these can be thought of as streams of education. Similar to as in the UK after grade 9, students decide which type of track to go into. Similar system in France, where they decide upon the series they're called. So they can either do the L series, which is literature, economics and social sciences, the ES, or the science series. Sometimes this is called the experimental sciences, but it's the science series nonetheless. The curriculum at the technological lycées is a combination of general and practical subjects, and we'll show you an example in a little bit. And that leads to the Diplôme du Baccalauréat Technologique. And finally, the Lycée Professionnel offers a vocational stream of secondary geared towards the labor market. By law, all three tracks may lead to higher education. However, the most common track is the general track. Here's an example of a relevé des notes, which is a transcript of the baccalaureate examination. If you see on the top left, it identifies where this is coming from. The examining authority is the Academy of Créteil, Paris, Versailles, and all of them will be issued by the Academy in that appropriate jurisdiction. The examination session is listed on the right, 2007. The specialty, it says ES.SC.ECO.Social. So based on that, what stream of baccalaureate is this, would you say? ES.SC.ECO.Social. Economics and Social Studies, yes, the ES track. So as you can imagine, the examinations taken will be related to economics and social studies. Although they are common, no matter what track you take, you will always be examined in written and oral French, which will be the first two, and in history and geography and mathematics. So those are always there. But then the ones that are bolded down here, those are subjects in particular related to that stream. So this student took economics and social sciences, English, Spanish, Italian, research, philosophy related to the social study track. The minimum passing grade is a 10. On this particular certificate, you see a resit. So the left side here lists the grades, but if the student has had a deficient grade, they have the ability to resit. And you see down here, it says average over 29.13. So this student, after the first try, failed, but they resat some courses, and then they attained a total of 10.21. And that's how they graduated. On the bottom, they will always have a stamp from the head of the institution or the president of the examinations board. Stamp. And on the bottom it says admis, which means pass, student passed. Okay, this is an example of the baccalauréat professionnel. As I said, this is a mixture of academic and vocational. It definitely leads to higher education, but it is more applied, so it gives students options to enter the workforce directly as well. There are general subjects, oral and written French, history, geography, etc. But over here, you have a lot of applied subjects. So this student studied business administration and management. So if they had wanted, after attaining the baccalauréat professionnel, they could go on to employment, or they can probably go into a higher education program in management or in business, or related studies. So it doesn't allow them maybe access to all educational programs. They wouldn't be as competitive versus the rest. But in that particular study, given their background, they would be quite competitive. So, well, you can't see, I was going to ask you which academy issued this credential, but you can't see from that far. It's the Academy of Versailles issued this credential. Okay, this is how the diploma looks like. So this is the exit credential for the baccalaureate. You will note that on the first line it says Ministry of National Education. So that's the overarching body. But again, it's the academy that's in charge of everything. So it says Académie du Créteil. That is the issuing body, Diplôme du Baccalauréat Général. This is the General College Preparatory Baccalaureate. It lists the stream of education here, economics and social science. It's issued to, that's the name of the student, born in so-and-so. And on the bottom, it will always have the stamp of the academy and the signature of the rector of the academy. One thing that I want to mention here just briefly is that there has been some changes in the French educational system. It went from being a 13-year system to a 12-year system. So back when the baccalaureate was taken after 13 years of education, it was very common for higher education institutions in the US and Canada and elsewhere to credit the first year of the bac towards higher education. Our colleague from the University of Montreal here, their school has an excellent database on their website you can go to and see how they would handle that issue, how many units, credits they would award towards higher education for courses on the back that are taken above a coefficient level 4. So that means the coefficient level determines how advanced the course is. So if it's above a 4, this may differ, some might say above a 5, they can be considered for advanced standing credit. Now, after the change to a 12-year system, this has sort of fallen by the wayside, and most institutions would say that even though it is still a rigorous examination, given that it's much easier to pass the baccalaureate now than it was perhaps 20 years ago, and the length of the total education has decreased, many institutions do not credit the student's advanced standing for any subject on the baccalaureate. It's up to your institution how you want to handle it, but if you want to reward a student that has done exceptionally well in a subject with a high coefficient, then you can do that, and there's certainly precedent for doing that. All right, how are we on time? 15?
42.
All right, I'm going to breeze through some of these. We won't get to all of the slides. I did have slides on Germany and Italy, so we might not get to them, but I want to get to the applications of the French model in other countries. The most common application is Morocco. The Moroccan system is based on the French bac, and as we noted earlier, it includes both continuous assessment and examination grades. But the curriculum itself is developed to fit the local environment. So you would never have a subject in the French bac called le fait local, local affairs, but you do on the Moroccan one. Or a subject called Arabic language or Islamic instruction or Islamic thought and philosophy. But that's the adaptation of the French system into Morocco. At the end of the examinations, that was the examinations transcript. Students are issued a diploma. This is how it looks like. This is an older version. The newer one may just have slightly different formatting, but it's always issued at least in 2 languages, French and Arabic. The new ones are issued in 3 languages, French, Arabic, and Berber. Yes, thank you for that. Berber, so there it will be trilingual. But if you only know French, you will be able to understand everything that's on the certificate because it's identical in all the languages. The rank will be listed on the bottom under mention. So this is very good. It says assez bien, very good. So this student is above average in their system. Only 1 copy of this diploma is issued, so if somebody loses it, there's no way to replace this diploma. You might get a letter from the ministry saying that, yes, the student was awarded a diploma, but a duplicate is never issued of this. Okay, Haiti follows the French model with a twist. They have divided their baccalaureate into 2 parts. So there is Bac 1, which is taken after 12 years, and Bac 2, which is taken after 13 years of education. The first part, première partie, sometimes referred to as Bac 1, does not grant access to university in Haiti. It only grants access to vocational programs and some technical programs. Only the second part, also referred to as Bac 2, or DES, grants admission to university. In the documentation, you will get both a transcript and a diploma. This is an example of a Bac 1 transcript. The issuing authority is Bureau National des Examens d'État, BUNEXI. That's the National Department for State Examinations. And they will always be signed on the right there, and signed also by the head of the Department of Certification and Equivalence, 2 signatures. The list of the subjects will be there. The grading is out of 20, but it's reported out of 100. So it uses a similar grading scale as the French system, but everything is reported out of 100. And in order to pass the bac, you need to have a minimum of 50%, or as you, if you remember from the French system, a grade of 10, 10 out of 20, 50%. So you need a minimum of 50% to go on to the next level. After the Bac 1, they get this diploma, which looks very similar to the other one. The only way, or it looks identical, I should say. The only difference is this one will say here, first part, section so-and-so. The other one will say second part, section so-and-so. The year is always listed on the furthest left. This is an example of a Bac 2 transcript. Same idea, it's taken the next year. Usually the examination session is in June or July. This was in the July 2015 session. This student did reasonably well and passed. This is, again, the grading scale extrapolated from 20. So the minimum is 50, the highest is 100. If they scored below 50, they failed. What level of achievement? Okay, average. And this is the diploma. As you see, it looks identical to the other one, but this one says second part, philosophy D. The year is 2015. We'll get to it at the end. All right, next one. Cameroon has also adapted the French system, but they have a dual system. They have an Anglophone and a Francophone system running concurrently. This is an example of the Anglophone system. All Anglophone qualifications go through the Cameroon General Certificate of Education Board. We would consider this credential as equivalent to the UK A level. It is an advanced level qualification. The student took 5 subjects, did reasonably well in 3 of them, and not so well in further mathematics and physics. This will grant access both to the licence program in the Francophone system and to bachelor level programs in the English system. This is a French level qualification offered in Cameroon. This is a baccalauréat technique, similar to the baccalauréat technologique. So it is a combination of academic and vocational. But the interesting thing here is that in Cameroon, this is a French level qualification. We're using a French curriculum, but it is taught in English and examined by the English board, the Cameroon General Certificate of Education. This is a little quirk in Cameroon. No matter what type of qualification, if it's vocational, even if it's from the French system, it's examined by the GCE board. Okay. How much time?
We have about 8 minutes left.
All right. I will breeze through this because there is one question that you might want to take note of. So the German system, the Abitur, is a 13-year system, 4, 6, 2, or 3. There's 2 concurrent curricula running in Germany. One is called the Oberstufe G8. That is a 12-year curriculum. And one is the Oberstufe G9, 13-year curriculum. Only 2 states in Germany offer the G9 curriculum. All others offer the G8, which is the 12-year curriculum. The academic upper secondary is offered at grammar schools, 2 or 3 year, and at the end of 12 or 13 years, students are issued the Zeugnis der allgemeinen Hochschulreife, or the Certificate of General Maturity for Higher Education, commonly known as Abitur. Okay, 12 or 13 years, we can skip this. The German system evolved from being a 13-year system pre-Bologna, where the gymnasium lasted 7 years and the total primary secondary was 13, to a Bologna where the secondary school gymnasium lasts for 6 years and the total is 12 years. Okay. This is an example of an Abitur. You'll see the title is here, and all of the subjects are listed on the other 2 pages. This is an example of a 12-year system. Subjects on the Abitur can be taken at 2 levels. Prüfungsfach is the regular average level, and the Leistungsfach is the advanced level. Subjects at the advanced level may be considered in certain situations for advanced standing credit at university in the US, not in Germany. Especially true if this was from a 13-year system rather than a 12-year. And how would you know that? Yeah. If you zoom into the subjects, you will see next to the name of the subject will be the level, and this is the abbreviation that they use for advanced level. If it has nothing next to it, then it's regular level. Okay. So, right, yeah, we can skip this.
Yeah.
And finally, we just want to touch very briefly on the Italian Maturità. This is a 13-year credential offered in Italy. They have different tracks: classical, linguistic, scientific, technical, and professional. It is taken after the last year of study at a liceo, or a technical institute, or a professional institute. The minimum passing is 60 points out of 100. This is how the credential looks like on the right. The grade is listed all the way down here, and it's spelled out. So this one says 67 out of 100. So this student is at the lower level because 60 is the minimum passing, but they have 67 points, and they attended the classical Maturità. The Maturità consists of 3 or 4 written examinations and an oral examination. The compulsory examination is Italian. The second examination will be in the core subject, physics in the science track as an example, or Latin in the classical track. And the third examination will vary depending on the examination commission that is administering it. The outcome: attaining the Maturità grants access to all Italian higher education institutions. And because it's a 13-year credential, in the United States, we would recognize holders of the Maturità plus a degree from Italy that's a 3-year as comparable to a U.S. bachelor's degree from the credential evaluation standpoint. You may have a different policy on that. But that is the difference between a degree that comes after 13 years versus one that comes after 12 years of primary secondary. All right, we breezed through. I apologize that some of it was short, but I wanted to leave enough time for question and answer, which we can address first, and then we can go to our quiz. So, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in the French high school, you would see baccalaureate, but in the Haitian diploma, you probably will not see baccalaureate. You'll see secondary studies, but that would be equal to a baccalaureate. Just to avoid confusion, because in some other diplomas you'll see secondary studies that is usually in 9th grade or 10th grade. But Haiti, you won't see baccalaureate. If you go back, you'll see secondary studies.
The title of the Haitian version of the baccalaureate is Diplôme d'études secondaires, so Diploma of Secondary Education Studies. But if you read the content, it will say this student passed the Bac 1, the first part, stream, so and so. Yeah.
I have a question, because they still have a unique baccalaureate. They have Bac 1, Bac 2, but they can pass also the baccalaureate unique. They still have
In Haiti?
IT. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. Like a one that includes both parts.
Like
Right.
the French one, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So they can either do the 2-part baccalaureate or take all in one. Yeah. Anything else?
If you do have any questions afterwards, please grab our cards and send the questions through after the session.
Yes. So, okay, we'll take one more and then we'll go to the quiz.
What are the two German Länder where they're still doing the 13-year Fabrikurs tour?
Rhineland-Palatinate is one. The other one I do not know off the top of my head.
Are they intending to phase it out as well? Or are they
Not that I know of, because one I just reviewed less than a month ago.
Okay.
So that tells me, and usually the phasing out takes many years. So I'm assuming that they're going to keep the 13-year system for some time. Yeah. All right, awesome. So now is the time to pull out your phones and go to a website.
While you do that, I'm going to hand out the...
Okay. Okay. Internet here is not good, but I'll use my hotspot.
Yeah, there aren't enough copies of that just to see that one, so for this session, we're going to
Almost there. Oops. Hopefully we'll find it. Can we get the IT guy in here?
Okay.
Oh, there it is. Okay, stop. But why can't I see what's on the screen? I have to maximize it.
See?
So it's showing on this screen.
You see, like, I tried to just do it on this screen, but it's here. Or maybe second screen only. Let's see. Well, that's what I was trying to do, but it didn't work. Well, let's see, maybe we'll do it now, hopefully.
Normally that doesn't trick.
It does it right away, right? Can you do just second screen only, or?
Try that.
Oh, there it is. There's. Oh, perfect. All right. Excellent. Okay. So, what you're going to do is go to kahoot.it, KAHOOT.IT. And no. Yeah, I was trying to even hotspot it with my phone, but I don't know why I just turned off the Wi-Fi. We see, maybe. Okay. So then, okay, fine. Now it should work. Good. Just try again. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. No, it should just give you like a code. It's a Wi-Fi issue. Oh my gosh. That's already connected to it.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So it's good. So it's just a matter of the program responding.
Let's see. It should connect now. Okay. 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 Are you on the website? Okay. You would enter, once you go to kahoot.it, you would enter this code 818-3170. 818-3170. That's that. That's fine. It's perfect. All right. We have Mia, Maria.
You wanted to go, did you want to go full screen here?
Yeah, sure. Full screen. All right. We have 9 players so far, 10. Let's see, where's that? You are playing for a Starbucks gift card, so after this you can get a latte and enjoy, or 2. So before we wrap this up with the roster, just so you know, you are rewarded for both correct answers and for speed. So the faster you can answer, the more points you get. Okay. Is there somebody else that is trying but can't get on? We have about 18 players. We'll give you maybe another 30 seconds, and then we'll start it up. All right, last call. Everybody in? Okay. You have 20 seconds to answer each question. First question is, the term second class generally denotes what level of achievement? Excellent, above average, average, or below average? All right. Let's see how people did. The correct answer was above average. 10 people got that right. 9 did not. So the 10 people have a bit of an advantage. Heather in the lead right now. All right, second question. Student would most likely take the WASCC examination in which country? Cameroon, Ghana, Kenya, or Egypt? Everybody answering, I like that. Oh, good one too. 15 got it right. That is Ghana. And the reason, of course, is because the WIAC, which is the regional body offering the exam, includes Ghana, Nigeria, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and some other countries in West Africa. Let's leave it at that. Heather, oh, so close, 1 point away from Tabby. Let's go to the third question. In general, how many passing grades on the WASCC grants access to university in Nigeria? So not in the United States, not in the UK, in Nigeria itself. The options are 7, 4, 8, or 5. Everybody answered and most got it right. It is 5. 5. You need 5 grades 1 through 3. Tabby overtakes. So interesting. Question 4. Overall supervision of qualifications in the UK is provided by Pearson Edexcel, the Department of Training, AQA, or Ofqual. Where do you go going here? Ofqual was the correct answer. And Tabby holding on. Question 5 out of 10. The highest grade in the new GCSE marking system is A, 9, 7, or A star. Ooh, tough one this. Only 12 got it right. It is 9. Those who answered A star, that was the highest grade in the old system. Tabby just holding on, but Karen, Marianne, close. In the UK, completion of the GCSEs does not grant access to what? BTEC, bachelor degrees, AS levels, or NVQs. Again, the answer is what it does not grant access to. Let's see, you think this is going to be a tricky one, I think. Oh no, wow, great going. That's exactly right. It can lead to all of these other things, but not to a bachelor degree. Question 7, in Haiti, students can access university with the following. Now this requires a little thought. 1200 out of 1600 on Philo D Part 1, 801 over 1600 on Red OC Part 2, 980 over 2000 on Red OC Part 2, or 1300 over 2000 on Red OD Part 1. And not everybody got to answer this, but those who did, 5 got it right. And yes, you need 801 over 1600 on the part 2. So you need above 50% on part 2. So even if you pass part 1, that doesn't grant access to university. Okay, the CSEC examinations are taken after grade 12, Form 5, Standard 10, or grade 10. This is tricky. That is correct. It's taken after Form 5. That is the grade 11, if that was available, but it wasn't. So Form 5, that represents 11 years, that's when the CSECs are taken. Karen, this is gonna be bloody. I feel it. All right, in France, the baccalaureate examination is administered by the lycées, the collège, Ministry of National Education, or regional academies. Going into the last question. Regional academies is the correct answer. Of course, it is, the overall is by the ministry, but the academies are independent and they're doing all the hard work. Wow, this is going to be so close, so close. It's anybody's game. Last question. On the German Abitur, which subjects are considered advanced level? Prüfungsfach, Leistungsfach, Länder, or Kunst? Is somebody celebrating a victory already? We shall see. Wow, most people got this right. Yes, Leistungsfach is the advanced level. Prüfungsfach is the basic level. Länder is a state, and Kunst is art, right? Kunst is art. So, final. Karen wins it. 9 out of 10. Congratulations. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure being with you at this session. If you have questions, please come to us to grab our cards. We'd gladly answer it. And
I have it on certificates as well. So
yes, and do submit the evaluation forms. TAICEP really wants those. So.
yeah. So if you want to come see me, I can hand these out, or I can read it out. Yes. Yeah. Okay, Sylvia. Ali. Barry. Marianne.
There's a lot more.
Sarah. Joanne.
I might walk it
Suzanne.
Yeah, that sounds great for like.
Emily.
Dinner time. I'm gonna try to get the 17.
Thank you.
Sydney.
There's a 17.
Sydney.
Yep.